Okay, welcome to the video. I hope that all wasn't nonsense. We are doing this a little differently today. I wanted to show you off something I've been messing around with this morning. Recently watched a video from Jon Cordy, which is not uncommon. That happens to me a lot. That guy's awesome. You should probably just go watch his video because he's much better than me. But one of the things that he does is a bunch of like infinite sustain freeze patches that he does with the Helix. And he usually does that with an expression pedal, which is fine. So two things I wanted to try. I had a different idea for the mechanic. I wanted to use a momentary switch to do the same thing. And then I also wanted to see if I could do this in the fractal instead of the Helix and what I might be able to do maybe a little differently or whatnot. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you what I got. You just heard what it sounds like. I've got my standard preset here. This is the Morgan AC20. And you heard me kick on a drive block there a few times. Got a big cloud reverb and a delay here. Nothing too crazy. Got a volume pedal in here. None of that is important. The important part for this freeze thing, how we do this, is we take a digital delay, and at feedback 100%, the digital delay will not go crazy like an analog delay. It'll just hold whatever's in the buffer forever, 100% feedback. And so if you at the same exact time take the input gain down, so you're not sending signal to the delay, and you crank up the feedback to 100%, the delay becomes like a really, really short looper. And so what you can do is play a chord and hit 100, and then you hit 100% feedback, take the input gain off, and you end up with whatever 500 milliseconds, however long you set the delay, to sustain out infinitely. So let me just show you. You heard it already, but I'll show you. I've got that wired up to this momentary switch here. So when I hold down the freeze button here, what happens is it is now in sort of like record mode. So it takes the feedback down to a normal level, and then when I release the button, it'll go into freeze mode. So it'll stop sending signal to the delay, and it'll crank the feedback to 100%. So I can hit a chord and just hit the switch for a second, and you can hear the delay there, and it'll just hold that out forever. And I can play over it and have some fun, as you heard. And then to clear it, all I have to do is, kill my signal, hold the button down for as long as the buffer is set, and then release it, and we have no sound anymore. So I'm gonna show you. I just showed you what it is, and you heard a sound sample. Now let's dive into how I did it. So you notice this branch here. Branch in the wiring, I shunted all the way from the volume. We're totally avoiding the amp. You actually don't even need any amp or tone shaping. You totally could, but we'll talk about that maybe later. The first most important thing here is the delay. So throw a delay in there. Could be really any digital delay, I think. And then the input gain, I mapped to control switch 1, and you'll see it's going from 0 to 100%. So min and max parameter range here is from 0 to 100% input gain. So that means when I push the switch down, when the switch is engaged, the input gain is 100%. When the control switch is disengaged, the input to the delay is 0. There's no input going to the delay at all. And then the other thing is the feedback. Feedback is mapped to minimum 100%, so when the switch is off, which is freeze mode, feedback is 100%. When the switch is engaged, feedback is, here it's set to 40%. Could be anything, right? Whatever to taste, however long you want the delay to ring out past when you are holding the button down. So that part's up to you. And that could just work. Now, but the problem you'll have is you can catch a transient in there. You want to kind of smooth it out. You don't want to hear like dot, 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 right? Like, which if you get a feel for playing with it, you still get a little bit of that. But what I did to mitigate that is, since there's no real auto swell, I mean, I guess there is an auto swell type in volume, but I wanted to still have my volume pedal just be my volume pedal and just have kind of like an auto swell thing. So what I did is I added a filter block before the delay, before this sort of like freeze delay that we're using, and then mapped the level control to the envelope follower. So hopefully this graph you can see, if I play, it's following the input signal of input 1. And so as I hit harder, as that signal gets louder, the envelope goes up, and then as the signal fades or goes back down to 0, the envelope goes down. And you'll notice I've tweaked this a little bit. What I've done is I set the offset here. So you notice if I move this offset, it changes the position, the starting position of the curve here. And that's just to like give me an opportunity to really chop off that transient. So even if I hit the chord as I step on the pedal, I won't get as much of that transient. I'll try to demonstrate that. So you can hear now, it's pumping a little bit. You can hear it pumping, but it doesn't have that, like the attack part, because in the offset of this envelope follower, we've completely chopped that off. So, and then the other thing I did was change the scale. If I had left the scale at 1, moving the offset also moves kind of the maximum value that you get. So I just cranked that up a little bit more to get me closer to full volume, but not 100% volume. Yeah, so that's just kind of like doing the auto swell thing. And that's just helping to chop off some of the transients so that when we're freezing, we're not getting lots of choppy, like whatever, which you may want. You may want to dial that in more. I've dialed it into kind of like a medium level that's okay for me to use here. And the other thing I should mention is that the mix on the delay is 100%. So this this signal path here is just the delayed signal, 100% delayed signal, and then we're mixing it back in to the reverb here. And I could throw a mixer block in here to mix it a little more specifically if I wanted to, but this seems to work out fine. And you can dial in the level parameter here as well if you wanted like a little bit less of the hold signal. You could even map that to an expression pedal. That might be interesting to be able to like dynamically control the level of that pad, right? Other things that might be cool here that I might play with at some point in the future is like adding some preamp shaping to this signal. So you can add like maybe a drive block or even I guess on the FM3 you don't have another amp block, so you couldn't do that. But if you were on the FM3 or on the FX3, you could add another amp block and just use like a preamp, the preamp part of it, to color the pad signal. To me, it sounds fine, clean, and just like pad like that. It totally works, but you could do that. You could also add some more, depending on how much CPU you have left, you can add more modulation and smoothing or crazy different effects to give you more of like a pad kind of sound. Maybe some cool stuff with like the new pitch echo stuff going on in the pitch block. That might be cool. Yeah. Overall, though, this is not a technique, something I've really messed with at all, using like a freeze or a hold pedal. But I think it's pretty cool, and it's really fun to practice with, just to jam. Like, I want to try out this chord progression. Like, how do I get from this chord to this chord? Okay, or what can I play over this one chord? So like maybe I'm just gonna, throw down a C major 7, and maybe I'm gonna try to like play some different scales over that to see what I can do over that one chord and how it feels. You don't need a looper, you can just do this, right? It's a lot simpler. In my mind, at least, it's a lot simpler. And it also feels like something that would be really easy to use for live use. Like if I wanted to do this, maybe I need to hold out a pad, but I also want to like at a certain point in the song, maybe I'm in a trio or something, and I want kind of a pad over a solo section, and it's a simple vamp. I could do it here, and I could on the fly change the chord and have control over that. If the chord progression is, not too packed, maybe that could work. It seems like it could work more so than like a looper could work, right? So anyways, this is a cool technique that I'm just getting used to, and I wanted to figure out how to do it in the Fractal and thought I would share that with you guys. So yeah, let me know if you have tried this, if you have your own patch for doing freezes in the Fractal, what other types of effects you like to throw on that signal path. Yeah, let me know if you think this is cool or not. I'll throw this preset up on Axe Exchange for download. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Remember, if it sounds good, it is good.